Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another night of iRacing action here on the National Racing Network. My name is Chris Graham. It is a pleasure to have you hanging out with us as tonight. The Sim Racers Club going to take on the Lady in Black, Darlington Raceway, a place with so much history, dating all the way back to September 4th, 1950, when D. Mel Hodgson of Nova Scotia caught a 997-pound tuna. I don't know that y'all care about that, though. Curtis Turner taking the pole here, 43.884 seconds. Johnny Mance getting the win in his Plymouth. Kudos to Patrick Byrne for the useless minutia of knowledge, and he's joining me in the booth here. I'll tell you what, Bizzle, it's Throwback Night. This is one I have been looking forward to for quite a while.
So much driving here. I'm not very good at this track, but I love watching people drive here. They show up in these retro schemes. Everyone throws on some kind of big party, like it's either 1950, 1970, 1990, whenever their favorite time at Darlington was. And it's just such a great show. As we see the crowd, they're obviously, one dude's in a beanie, the other chick, she's in a Hawaiian shirt. They're not very vintage right now, but still having a great time like we are up here.
Yeah, well, here's one of our vintage cars, Mr. Will Worsler, having a pretty decent season thus far. Let's take a look. I'm going to pull up the info on this one, but thus far, 3 different winners in 3 different races. Worsler entering the night third in points behind Tyler Seville and Kevin Dick. He's only 22 points out of the lead. And really, we're looking at a top 5 only separated by 30 points. Yes, Tyler Seville's been good, but we're still early. I mean, we're going to be racing well into December. A lot of time for this points battle to tighten up.
Oh, yeah, there's still 1 race a month with 2.5 months or so left to go. It's like 10 races still. So what most series consider just about a full season, we've still got left in this one.
Yeah, Hunter Waters, another guy in a great throwback paint scheme. Unfortunately, he disappeared off the racetrack. Another one, I like this one. Hunter Wise in the 31. Now, you go, okay, it's a Redneck Jesus Budweiser scheme. It would be the 8 or something, right? Except Neil Bonnet ran the 31 for Richard Childress Racing back in 1993, the Die Hard 500 at Talladega. Went for one of the wildest rides in the history of the sport, down basically the entirety of the front tri-oval. So the 31 number has a connection to the Earnhardt family in Childress, and I kind of like what Scott, has done here with the paint scheme. That one's interesting. Is that, oh, hold up. We got, I think, another nominee here. Let me see who, okay, well, here you go. We got another one here. In Richard Fletcher. He's running a Bill Elliott McDonald scheme. I want to say, gosh, 94, 97-ish kind of time frame.
Yeah, I think he was running something like that for most of the 90s.
Good paint scheme. I like the throwback. Let's see. Let's get you up to speed here on the race before we head off to qualifying here pretty shortly, because we're going to start qualifying in about 15 seconds. Stages tonight, lap 25 and lap 65. Lap 25 will give us the yellow flag, so we'll have a stage break, but it's going to be early in this one. Total race distance for the night, 130 laps. The way this place chews up tires, I think we're not going to have to worry a ton about the caution flag. But it's definitely something these guys have to put at least a little bit of thought into here, though, is how you're going to manage tires.
I mean, tires are the biggest thing. Johnny Mance won the first race here by not pitting. Other teams were using up to 15 sets of tires during the race, even going as far as paying spectators to take the tires off of their cars. Tires have always been a big deal here at Darlington, all the way back 72 years ago now.
Yeah, quite frankly, there's a whole lot going on here. As Andrew Moore runs out onto the racetrack, and by the way, the comment about buying tires off of spectators, not exactly the whole truth there. There was a whole lot of just stealing tires off of race cars out of the parking lot.
Yes, some of the teams bought, some of the teams stole, and some of the teams exchanged. Maybe wheeling out their spent and down to the cord racing tires and slapped them back on whoever's Ford was out there in the parking lot.
Yeah. Quite frankly, there was a lot going on back in the day, but take a look here and we'll wait for some of the numbers to start coming in here. We do have 2 looks that we'll be able to give you. First lap on the board going to be Kevin Dick at a 29.533, 29.533. New quick time, Hunter Waters top of the board. One of the better of the throwback paint schemes. Let's pick him up. A Derek Cope 1990 Daytona 500 winning paint scheme on the number 7 tonight. Waters at the conclusion of lap number 2. He's going to stay in at a 29.526. Andrew Moore Jr. to the top of the board. Well, he was at the top of the board. Kevin Dick went second. Johnny Avila goes quick time. 29.276, 29.27 with a 6 for the pilot of the 63. Kevin Dick has finished his run. Go ahead, buddy.
Johnny Avila is running a fantastic throwback scheme to his championship-winning drive of last season.
Yes, that is exactly what that's a throwback to. Let's take a look here. Pick up the number 11 of Tyler Seville as he's working his way around the racetrack. I believe... Let me take a look. I'm trying to find one of these paint schemes. Will Worsler moving up to 4th quick on the board. 29.48 flat.
Will Worsler in a fantastic throwback as well.
Yes, he is. Let's pick him up here as he comes around the racetrack. Jeff Burton, eat your heart out, buddy. The X-Side Batteries paint scheme. The last paint scheme to lead every lap of a NASCAR Cup Series race coming in, I want to say 97 at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And he puts it on the top of the board. Quick time, 29.208. 29.20 with an 8 for Will Worsler. Tyler Seville jumping up to 3rd quick. Let's take a look here. We'll pick up the 23 of Richard Smith as he's making his way around the racetrack, running his normal week-in, week-out paint scheme. Another one. Let's get him as he's coming off on turn 2 onto the backstretch. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. I like it. It's a Dale Earnhardt scheme.
It's creative. I love the blend. I just want to say the colors don't seem to go together. I think that's my issue with it. I love it. It combines old Dale Earnhardt with the later part of his career.
Yeah, he ran the Wrangler colors with that paint scheme, both with the 2 driving for J.D. Stacy. Also ran it for up until 1986 for Richard Childress. Then he became the Man in Black. Both of them were absolutely iconic paint schemes. So, in fact, so iconic that when iRacing released the 1987 Cup cars, the Monte Carlo was released with that Wrangler scheme as like a base default scheme. I like it. I'm not sure how well the 2 go together, but it's growing on me a little bit here.
I know. The more laps you watch with this car, I'm kind of feeling it.
A little bit. By the way, there is a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place award going out for the drivers with the best throwback paint scheme. We will take your votes in the comments. We'll consider them. We may flat ignore them, but Patrick and I will be picking the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd here. Pick up the 43 of Richard Fletcher as he is out on the racetrack.
I just noticed the flames, it looks like, coming off the side of that car, like off the white.
Yes.
I don't know if that's flames or not. Is that something that Bill Elliott ran, or is that kind of his take on the paint scheme?
No.
I don't remember flames on the side of that car.
No, it didn't have flames. It's where the number is positioned. Remember, the number on the next-gen cars is way forward. That actually, to me, is a little bit of a points deduction. I would shift the contingency decals backwards to the number position, knowing that the number position is going to slot forward. Sacrifice a little bit of pure historic authenticity for the paint scheme looks good.
Either that, or I know Bill Elliott, he ran yellow numbers a couple times. Not like Hendrick yellow, but it was like a yellow tint, right?
Yeah, it was the Golden Arches yellow was the number color on the side of the car.
I would almost say it would be a good idea to just switch to that so they contrast a little better.
Let's see. This guy has been hyping up this paint scheme all day. Oh! Mike McConville, you have scored some brownie points, buddy. Smokey's Garage, Smokey Unic on the side of the 57 here tonight.
Now, out of all of the cars in the garage, that one is getting teched twice before the race and 4 times after the race. And no ifs, ands, or buts. When we pull the fuel tank out of that thing, if it still runs, get him out of here.
Yes, Darrell Waltrip told a great story about one of his Junior Johnson number 11 Budweiser cars, that they filled the frame rails with lead shot to make up to the weight that the car had to be. Well, you wanted to get the lead shot out of the car. You needed a hole somewhere, right? Well, the genius that was Junior Johnson put the hole that the lead shot would fall out of in the jack post. So NASCAR brings the car in to tech it at Bristol because they've got all this lead shot all over the place. Slide the jack onto the post, jack the car up. The jack's now covering the post. No lead shot's going to fall out of it. They absolutely hammered Dave Marcus because they were sure it was Dave Marcus's car that was dropping the lead shot all over the place.
Didn't he end up with an issue at that where it was supposed to just kind of dribble it out throughout the race and...
Yeah, it condensed.
Instead, it all came out as, once.
One big clump. There were, clumps of lead shot coming out of the car. Became the world's fastest shotgun. Mike McConville, by the way, going up to 7th quick on the board, 29.466. We have a couple of throwbacks like this, though, that I'm looking forward to showing everybody. Thus far, Tim Knott, Jeff Yenish, and Steve Yenish have not been out on the racetrack. They still have about a minute and 50 seconds or so to get out there. John Moeller has turned 2 laps, didn't score on either one of them. Colton Harvey got 1 and change laps in, did not score on his lap. Max Williams was on the racetrack as well, did not score on either lap. That's the Darlington stripe coming into play, and it's already happening in qualifying. Taking a look at the historical information you put together here on this one, Patrick. Fireball Roberts finished 2nd in the first Southern 500. 9 laps down. Barn burner of a race that one was. Earning $3,500 for 2nd place. However, what might be my favorite stat, though, is by lap 300 of that race, 50 of the 75 cars were still running.
Which is incredible considering these were 1950s piles of junk. I know some of you love these old cars. I do too. I've seen 1993 Toyota Camrys with 400,000 miles on the clock. That'll do another 100,000 well before something from the 50s would do another 10,000 before you had to adjust the points again.
Yes. It was truly a test of man versus machine then. Obviously here we're doing a little bit different test. Not only, you're not worrying about the reliability of the race car, but...
Well, we are in the next-gen car.
We are in the next-gen car, but we're not able to simulate broken power steering boxes as the time on qualifying runs out here. You are testing man versus machine, though. Darlington is hard. If you're on a direct drive wheel, this place is a ridiculous kind of workout.
Not only that, this track might look super wide, but there's only banking in the top lane and a half. And in addition to that, right against the wall is the fastest line, which is great if you can hit it each time, but every single driver is going to mess that up at some point. Who gets the biggest stripe? We don't know. We watch Kyle Larson here, the best at running the top line. He'll finish here later this year with a Darlington stripe. You watch Christopher Bell, another one. He'll finish with a Darlington stripe. And you watch anyone else in the field of the real life race or this race right now. All of them are going to have right side damage by the time the checkered flag drops.
Richard Smith II checking in saying, not my regular day in, day out. It's the Columbia throwback from the 90s. Come on. I apologize. That's not a paint scheme that I recognized. We'll see him as he gets in the car here. But first, let's get you the starting grid for tonight's 130 lap Sim Racers Club Premier Series feature event from Darlington Raceway. Lining up on the pole for tonight's race with a lap time of 29.209 seconds. It is Will Worsler in the X-Side Batteries, number 29 Ford Mustang out of New Johnsonville, Tennessee. Lining up alongside in the 63 out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the defending champ, Johnny Avila. Tyler Seville, Kevin Dick can occupy row number 2. Andrew Moore Jr. and Troy Haight on row number 3. Row 4 will have Mike McConville and Alex Link. Row 5, Hunter Waters and Scott Wise. Row 6, Brad Allison and Thomas Wilhite. Row number 7, Richard Smith and Tony Patton. Richard Fletcher, Daniel Pinkston on row 8. Row number 9, Colton Harvey and Steve Yenish. Jeff Yenish, Max Williams can occupy row number 10. And row 11 will be Tim Knott and John Moeller. 22 cars for this 130-lap feature event. We are looking forward to every bit of this one here as we welcome you back to another week of racing action here on the National Racing Network. Pace truck is in. It is go time. As always, race fans, sit back and enjoy this first lap. It's going to be all yours. Lap number 1 is in the books, and it will belong to Mr. Johnny Avila. Will Worsler, Kevin Dick, Tyler Seville, Andrew Moore, your top 5. Tightest battle on the racetrack right now. We're going to go a little bit further back. Everybody single filed out here. Alex Link sitting just back of Mike McConville and Troy Haight. And Patrick, we may already have a nominee for my favorite paint scheme of the night. It is going to belong to, I believe, get the close-up on it, I think this is a Larry Pearson throwback. I'm going to say, gosh, mid-1980s maybe? Well done. Nice throwback there, John Moeller.
Yes, it is. You will be correct in that statement. You drove that on a T-Bird.
Hold up. We got trouble on the racetrack. Richard Fletcher getting up at least towards the outside safer barrier. If you didn't get into it, bottles the field up. That car very slow on the racetrack right now, giving up a ton of time. Oh, man.
So
great paint schemes here. Go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to say, I did jump down and ask Richard Smith about his paint scheme. It's actually a throwback to Bubba Wallace's throwback scheme. I believe it was last year. Columbia was sponsoring him, and Columbia did a throwback to their 90s colors of the brand. Okay.
So that's why it looked a little bit unfamiliar. This one on the 89 at Jeff Yenish, I'm almost positive was a bullseye barbecue sauce paint scheme. I want to say Kenny Schrader ran it. I think. Take a look here. Mike McConville having some issues. He's up against the outside safer barrier. Oh, and he is hard into that safer barrier. Wall riding through turns 1 and 2. Do we have a... Oh, man, banks it off the wall. Almost collects the 8. He's trying to keep it up there. Finally able to get the car down. Do we have our first failed power steering pump of the night happening here on lap number 6?
Oh, no.
That's not good. Move up a little bit forward here. The action. Kevin Dick getting around Will Worsler in the battle for the 2nd position. Back to the 95 of Alex Link, it looks like. Starting to break away here. Scott Wise into 31, back in the 8th position. Going to be about a 2.5 seconds back of the leaders. Now, I would imagine here, Patrick, you probably can chase this first segment pretty hard because you know you're going to be able to take tires at that lap 29 caution. From there, lap 25 caution. From there, though, you really do have to play the tire conservation game.
My apologies, my little bit of technical difficulties. Absolutely, you want to get up there, get yourself to the front. Track position is super important. So if you get yourself up there, put new shoes on the car at that caution, and hopefully try to keep yourself up front.
Johnny Avila, Kevin Dick really starting to break away from the field here now. Let's slide back just a little bit here and pick up another good battle that's going on. That is going to be Tony Patton, Steve Yanish, Jeff Yanish, Richard Smith, Tim Knott, Daniel Pinkston, all in this fight. Big dive down into the corner for the 89. That's gutsy from Jeff Yanish. This really, though, if you're going to try to make up time and do it in a hurry, this is the segment of the race where you want to do that.
Yeah, and this is where you really get to feel out how your car is performing and if you are confident with racing around other drivers or not. Because if you can't do that now in the early stage of the race, you're not going to want to be up there fighting for the win at the end and wondering, can I make this move? Is this possible? How will the car react to this? You want to figure all this dirty air stuff out right now.
Sliding a little bit further back here, picking up the 29 of Will Worsler. He is just ahead of Tyler Seville, Andrew Moore, Alex Link, and Troy Haight. The gaps are definitely starting to open up here. Top 2 breaking away, 3 through 7 breaking away a little bit. Hunter Waters kind of a man all on his own, currently in the 8th position. Then we got another good battle shaping up back here for the 9th position. That's going to be Brad Allison, Thomas Wilhite, and Colton Harvey. Already halfway through stage number 1 here at the Darlington Raceway. Everybody knows the story of the minnow pond, which caused the turns 3 and 4 end of the racetrack to be a little bit narrower. However, what a lot of people may not know is this start-finish line was not always the start-finish line of the racetrack. In the building boom of the late 90s and early 2000s, International Speedway Corp that owns the Darlington Raceway, now it was then ISC, now NASCAR, made the decision to flip the front and back straightaways so you could get a larger grandstand on the front stretch. But if you're watching Days of Thunder, getting yourself ready for Throwback Night, they talk about the treacherous turn 4. That's now the treacherous turn 2 because of how the racetrack narrows here at the exit of the corner.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting how that little detail where they had to narrow it just a little bit makes this track so difficult to drive, so difficult to set a car up for, because you can't go into it thinking it's a traditional oval. If you set the car up for what is now 3 and 4, it's going to suck in 1 and 2. If you set it up for 1 and 2, it's going to suck in 3 and 4. if you set it up to be decent at all of them, then, well, it's just kind of going to suck everywhere.
Yeah, you're
So
going to be
this
slow
track
no
is-
matter what end of the racetrack you're running on.
This track is all about compromise, and it leads to the great finishes like the one we got in 2002, where I believe it was Kurt Busch was better in 1 and 2, and Craven, of course, is better in 3 and 4, and got Kurt Busch coming across the line by just a nose.
Yep, I believe it at the time it was the closest finish in the history of NASCAR.
I believe that record still holds.
Let's see. Yes, the 2003 Carolina Dodge Dealers 400. Ricky Craven over Kurt Busch by 2 1/1000ths of a second. 8 years later, it was tied. The 2011 Aaron's 499, Jimmy Johnson beating Clint Boyer by 0.02 of a second. What's interesting there was the 6th place car finished about 1/10 of a second behind the race leader. That was the tandem drafting era when literally it was just hook up and shove each other all the way around the racetrack.
I believe you have to go to the 4th digit to see that Darlington is faster. I was looking at the NASCAR results a while ago. It's a difference of like 3/10,000ths of a second, or 3/10ths in the machinist's world, for how close those two finishes were. I mean, it's incredible.
Quite frankly, now a lot of these are going to be the super speedways, but the 13th closest finish is 0.18 of a second between Boyer and Jeff Burton. The closest of all time was that Darlington race at 0.02. Absolutely insane. And the fact that they were absolutely using each other up was the fun part too. Slide back here, Andrew Moore Jr. making the move inside of Tyler Seville as we work lap number 20, getting down towards the end of this first stage. And we're definitely seeing the race leaders start to separate themselves out a little bit. Little bit of a wiggle there for the 36 of Colton Harvey off the corner. He gets around Alex Link just after Hunter Waters does the same. So what do you think here, Patrick? We have to pick a 3rd place, a 2nd place, and a 1st place. How about we pick a 3rd place best appearing car here for the end of stage number 1?
Oh.
Do I need to give you more time to decide on these?
I've definitely got my favorite, but there's just so many other good ones, and I feel like I'm doing the rest of them injustice if I pick just one for 3rd place right now.
Honestly, I think I need a little bit more time here. There are some that I absolutely love. The Larry Pearson throwback is beautiful. Thomas Wilhite's, that is I think Fireball Roberts ran that car. David Pearson ran that color scheme. Pretty sure it's a Silver Fox car. That was a David Pearson. But to have both Pearsons represented in the race is pretty epic as well. And it's the little details, by the way, as we see the 89 of Jeff Yenish making his way to the inside. 429 cubic inches of all-American iron under the hood of that Torino Cobra.
Well, the Mustang it's painted on top of only has a 358 cubic inch.
It doesn't matter. I like the historical accuracy of that one. Working lap number 24, Johnny Avila leading over Kevin Dick and Will Worsler. The car of Worsler has really come to life here later in this first stage. Oh man, Kevin Dick may have bounced it off the wall there. You heard a little bit of contact come through. Cody Brooks with a fantastic comment coming in here. round things out first. Off of turn number 4, checkered flag's going to go in the air. Green and white checkered for Johnny Avila. Kevin Dick and Will Worsler were side by side off the corner. Worsler going to hold on to third. But man, that one was tight. Let's take a look here. There is the caution flag. Great save by Will Worsler off the corner here. Let's see if we can get this one queued up on the replay real quick. Yeah, a little bit late on that one. So Johnny Avila going to pick up the win here in stage number 1.
I think I have 2 nominations for the third, but I can't decide between them.
Okay. Let's see. Who are you thinking?
I'm thinking either Mike McConville, although that scheme is just so good, but he's already out of the race. So I almost want to give it to him, just give it to him now as a consolation, but that scheme might be worth much more than third. So I think I'm going to give it to, I forget who's running the Bill Elliott scheme, just because it's such a good scheme, but going to have to knock it down to third just because of the numbers.
I see. I don't even know that I can make that one third.
No?
We might have to argue over this one. First, let's get through the round of pit stops here. Is everybody going to make their way down pit lane? This is what we're going to see every time the caution flag flies as well, is get in, get 4 fresh Goodyear Racing Eagles, 2 cans Sunoco fuel. However, though, Patrick, I think they only have 2 sets of tires in the box. Maybe 3.
Oh, then I don't want to use him this early. Put him back behind the wall.
Yeah, let's see. For Darlington, yeah, 1 plus 2 in the pits is the number of sets of tires. Oh, man. This is going to make things interesting. You're going to have to make a set of tires last basically 100 laps from this point out.
I don't know if that's possible even if you ran around the apron at 75 miles an hour.
It's going to be tough. Cody Brooks checking in. I wonder if the excitement of winning by 2000s outweighs the anger of losing by 2000s, or if they just agree it was nose and nose and good game. Yeah.
I don't specifically remember the interview, but I know Kurt Busch was disappointed, but I don't think he was upset at the finish of the race.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of saying it.
He definitely had fun while becoming first loser.
Yes. There we go. Now the comments are going to decide to load. Mike McConville checking in here as well. Unfortunately, not the night that Mike wanted to have. Practice doesn't always make perfect. Raced 1,000 laps this week and lost talent 5 laps in. Mega disappointed. Tough break. It's frustrating. I get that part of it.
Yeah.
John Moeller, by the way, in the Larry Pearson throwback, making his way down pit lane now.
I was going to say, it's the most frustrating when you do a ton of practice for these and then either get taken out or taking yourself out hurts even worse early on in the race.
So let's run you through the throwback paint schemes here to give everybody a chance to kind of get a pretty look at these and see which one might be your favorite. The 29 of Will Worsler in the X-Side Batteries colors. That's a good-looking race car right there. Nice job by the painter of getting the shades of purple right in between the pink and blue. That's a nice touch.
Oh,
well
yeah.
done. Hunter Waters
that
in this.
one,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Will Worsler's definitely good enough for third, but I just think it's better than third. But I think all of these are better than third.
Well, I agree with you. I like the 7 of Hunter Waters here. That's a well-done paint scheme. and you've got the numbers in the right spot, the contingencies are right, the extra graphics are done up to cover where the number would have been. That's how you put together one of these throwback schemes. I like that one.
And you could tell he probably did it himself because it's still got his Hunter's Pickles on the side of it.
Yes, it does. So getting ready to go back to green flag racing here. Wind them up. Go ahead. What the hell? Let's give you a shot. Go ahead and crank it up. So lap number 31 is in the books. We're back running green flag running here in stage number 2. Johnny Avila jumping out to the early lead over Will Worsler, Kevin Dick, Tyler Seville, and Andrew Moore Jr. Your top 5. Great battle here off the corner. Also good one starting to heat up for the race lead. Will Worsler just might want a piece of Johnny Avila here at the front of the field.
Defending champion versus his boss. How is this one going to play out?
For right now, not very well for Will Worsler, but man, side-by-side racing back here just behind the leaders. Side-by-side's never a good idea at Darlington.
There's just no room for it.
There's no room for it, and it is so easy to see the car that's on the bottom lane bobble just a little bit. You got to run up the hill to catch the car, and then if you're the guy on the outside, you're getting a big old face full of safer barrier there on the corner exit.
Yeah, there's a lot of banking here. You can get away with saving the car and running up the banking. The only problem is the banking's not very wide.
Yeah, the place was actually designed with 2 different sets of banking in the corners, with the idea being that you could run open wheel style Indy cars on the lower part of the banking, where that dashed line is a shallower set of banking, and then you get down to the flat apron all the way at the bottom of the racetrack. There is a little bit of history of, I'll say, the champ cars running here. USAC ran a handful of races from 50 to 56, every one of them being won by an Offenhauser powered race car. The first race back in 1950, I know, you were not allowed to go above that dashed line. That was actually like officiated out of bounds because the speeds were going to be so high.
Yeah, the final USAC race here was actually won by Pat O'Connor, one of the last races he won before he unfortunately passed away at the Indy 500.
That was one of the wildest wrecks you would ever see at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Turn 3 of the 1958 greatest spectacle in racing. As we have Troy Haight, he's making a march through the field here. I wonder if Kevin Dick maybe didn't make some contact with the outside wall, because he is falling backwards right now. Man, Troy Haight may have gotten a piece too.
Darlington stripe.
Trouble for Richard Fletcher. Looks like he will be out of the race, as is Max Williams, Alex Link, and Mike McConville. To this point, though, knocking on wood, the only caution we've had is for the stage break at the end of stage number 1, and it's the last guaranteed caution we're going to get for the rest of the night. And quite frankly, Patrick, we can see this race ticked by in a big time hurry when you're talking sub 30-second laps still. Even, gosh, let's see, 12, 13 laps into a tire run?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton of fall off yet, so that's a good sign. The only downside to if the tires aren't falling off now, they're going to drop off a cliff later.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to see these cars go, I would think, probably 55 laps or so before we see a tire change. Looking at the numbers from lap 27, that would mean... It'll be about lap 82 before we can really see cars make a stop on pit lane for their final tire change of the evening.
That really sucks as a driver when the car is driving like crap and it's really difficult to get the turn, and you know you just have to press on and wait to put new tires on it. Because in your head you're just going, don't wreck the car, don't lose any more position, and you end up doing exactly that by focusing on it. It makes it really, really tough, especially if you're not good at conserving tires.
Right now, Troy Haight, after getting around race leader Johnny Avila, opening up about a half-second gap here over the dominant car the first part of the race. Avila leading 38 laps. Haight now leading his third lap. And quite frankly, outpacing the field by a wide margin. The 5-lap average for Troy Haight, 30.039. 30.2 is the average for the rest of the top 6. We'll see how long Troy Haight can keep that up, though. He's trying to run away and hide here, but some of that also is going to boil down to when do the guys behind him decide to get racy. If Avila, Worsler, and Dick decide they're just going to stay in line and log a bunch of laps, could come back to bite Troy Haight a little bit later on in the run.
Yes and also no. He's keeping himself in clean air. You can run faster on clean air and use up less tires. It's just a matter of how much faster does he want to run. Does he want to just hold pace with them, or does he want to run away with it a little bit?
Yeah, it's a great point because, I mean, the lap averages are getting a little bit closer now, but basically what you're saying, Patrick, is you kind of get yourself out to like 3/4 of a second, and then you're just going to run whatever lap time it is you need to run to keep it at that distance.
Yeah, if you notice Johnny Ville's getting a little bit too close for comfort, you can push for a couple laps, and if you notice you're getting too far away, you can reel him back in. You are in control when you're the leader, and it is the best thing everywhere except Daytona and Talladega.
Everybody lined up here pretty cleanly. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. We'll slide back a little bit. Pick up, and let's see here. Tyler Seville, Steve Yenish, and Hunter Waters. This is 7th, 8th, and 9th. Kind of the same gaps we see at the front of the field. Oh, hold up. Troy Haight may have gotten a piece of the wall. The gap now inside of 0.6 of a second. Last lap, Troy Haight almost 0.2 slower than Johnny Avila. Ever so slightly, that gap is creeping in. Down to lap number 50.
And Troy Haight, if you just look at lap times, he's starting to fall off a little bit. I almost wonder if he was pushing too hard too early. And you've got your guy trying to qualify for the Pro Series right behind him in second place. Knows how to save his stuff.
Colton Harvey having the peek down inside of Kevin Dick through 1 and 2. Now he gets back up the racetrack, going to fall back in line. Johnny Avila is right there. Here comes the peak. Is he going to make the dive into the corner? He will. He's going to get the job done. Will Worsler not able to follow him through. Worsler getting a pretty good run off the exit at turn number 4, though. We'll see if he makes the move. Well, Troy Haight going to try to cover the inside lane as they head back towards turn 1. Oh man, I wonder if Troy Haight didn't use up the tires, because he is an absolute rock falling down the leaderboard right now. Back to the 6th position. Tyler Seville quickly catching in. Seville going to have to contend here with Steve Yenish making the move down to the inside. Yenish going to be able to get that pass completed. Didn't lose much momentum either. He may have a shot at Troy Haight as they work down the front straightaway. Be a little bit far back to try it this time, though. This is one of my favorite things to watch, Patrick. The comers and goers over the course of a run here at Darlington. Troy Haight able to make a great early run, burns the tires off. He's going to be hurting for another 30 or so laps. Steve Yenish, he's up 12 spots. Colton Harvey is up 13. The difference that just a little bit of tire saving can get you.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. You kind of just only have to save maybe half a tenth here, a tenth there, and just not overheat the tires. It's not even like you have to lift and coast or do anything crazy. You just have to not push the car and not overheat anything, and it'll pay off with dividends towards the later part of the run.
Now the question becomes, when do you think the window opens for that final stop? Obviously, you don't want to stop too early, but then you run the risk of losing out to the undercut that might come in at, lap 80 instead of lap 85 or something like that.
I would honestly say here as late as you possibly can without having someone overcut you or undercut you, which is obviously the strategy every crew chief on pit road has it in their heads. So it's very vague and very not good, because I don't think there is a right time. I'm just going to say the right time to pit is whenever the guy who takes home the checkered flag does, because there's many, many different options, and all of them have the possibility to work and fail depending on who else takes what other options.
Jeff Yenish coming around Troy Haight just a couple of corners ago. Thomas Wilhite taking a pit stop, 29:32 on the time of the stop. We did see the car up on the jack, so he did take tires along with some of the repairs that were needed on that car as well.
Will Worsler now trying to come back up to put the fight up to Johnny Avila, but just not making up ground very quickly. Not yet.
I would imagine as we see Will Wursler making the move on Johnny Avila, man, they got tight off of turn 4. This is really where these guys don't want to see a yellow. You don't want to see the tires heat cycle. You kind of want to get the next 20 laps or so in and then go, okay, I can make my final stop now.
Yeah, you almost want the caution to come out. I would say probably around lap 80 to 85 if it does come out, but you don't want to be the caution. So Will Wursler trying to give himself a Darlington stripe as Johnny Avila now cuts down to the inside.
Wursler may have gotten a stripe. I think Kevin Dick may have gotten the outside wall as well. Andrew Moore Jr. having the peek inside of Avila down into 1. He'll get the pass completed. A little bit of a soft slide job there into turn 1. Darlington, one of the few oval tracks where you can truly throw a slide job on somebody.
Yeah, you can cut so much out of this track with how wide it is. You can kind of dive down to where there's no banking. As long as you can get the car woed down before it smacks the wall, you can slide all the way back up there. As Will Wursler going for the huge bizzle on Andrew Moore. Back up the racetrack they go. How have they not torn up a bunch of race cars yet? It's like watching Fast and Furious, the way they were blocking each other in the corner. It went high line, low line, high line, low line, I think 4 times through that corner. I'm waiting to see the Ejecto-Cito cuz get popped on one of these cars. I don't think that line is trademarked.
Will Wursler thus far holding about a 1/10.5 over Andrew Moore Jr. Moore closing up. Johnny Avila's going to be right there as well.
Fantastic battle here at the front. They're just all kind of waiting, playing chess with each other. No cheating in this chess game. And if you know, you know. Kind of waiting for that move to appear, taking it, capitalizing, and then either holding on to it or losing out. As we see Andrew Moore lose it out. Maybe not him specifically, but whoever his ISP is definitely losing out right now. There he is. He is back.
Oh, sliding sideways. This may bring out a caution, and it does. Yellow flag is out for Andrew Moore Jr. That car going slipping and sliding off of turn number 2.
I guess his internet died out. And for us as sim racers, when that happens, every other car goes blank. There's nothing there. Which is why when we're trying to watch the replay of him, we get some ladies back.
Yeah,
everything goes blank. So he must have no clue where anyone is. They must have popped back in for just a split second. And he had to react to that because he was way too close to someone. And unfortunately, seems like it tore up the race car a little bit.
Yeah, he's got pretty heavy damage on the right front corner of that car. May have gotten a piece of the 03 of Brad Allison as well.
Now, I love the new damage model on these things. You can just see that fender kind of bobbling around, and it actually, it's not perfect, but it looks a lot better than what we've had in iRacing for the last 10 or so years. Where now almost the car dynamically gets torn apart instead of the same part of the front bumper getting scrunched up each time.
So race leaders are going to make their way down pit road. Nobody's going to be taking 2 tires. The question is, does anybody take the 4 tires? you've only got 39 laps on this set of tires. And I say only, but I think it's a far better alternative than having to run a 60-plus lap stint on a set of tires.
Yeah, it might be too early, but at the same time, it might just be the right time to take him. You might not get another opportunity under caution to take tires.
Taking a look, all of the cars on the lead lap are down pit lane.
And Will Warser missed his pit box. He had to back up and put that car back in the box before they would service it. As they do all take tires, Will Warser going to lose 2 spots exiting pit road. He's going to restart in the 3rd position.
Yeah, Johnny Avila going to win the race off of pit lane. However, it was, I believe, Will Worsler picking up the win in stage number 2. Stage 2 concluding at lap number 65. So, Patrick, I think I'm looking at some of the numbers here, and I think we can maybe go by process of elimination. This may have to be how we do this, because there are some great paint schemes out here. I would make the argument that we could possibly eliminate the 43 from contention for an award because of the number issue. I think if you're going to be top 3, you got to be primo, right?
Not the 43. The
yeah, that's the McDonald's.
Bill Elliott one.
Yes. Yep, that's the 43 of Richard Fletcher there on pit lane.
Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah. Sorry, Fletch. Alright, so 43.
The other one, I would say, I would eliminate, I'm going to call it more of a technicality than anything else. But I want your thoughts on this. The 23 of Richard Smith. And here's why I say that. The paint scheme on that car is a Bubba Wallace throwback, but it's Bubba throwing back to himself.
Not necessarily. It's
the sponsor throwing back to themselves.
It's sponsor throwing back to themselves, but it wasn't a car run previously in racing. It was, I believe, them throwing back to one of their old color schemes. So
you're saying my technicality is not actually a technicality?
I'll agree with you. It is a technicality because the racing scheme that was raced, I believe he said was raced last year. So I don't know if that's old enough to be considered a throwback yet. If there was a child born on that day that scheme was ran, he's got to be at least in grade school by now for it to be considered a throwback scheme. We'll go with that. We'll go 5 or 6 years at least to be a throwback scheme.
Okay. Now, things start to get a little bit more difficult here as we get ready to go back to Green Flag Racing with Johnny Avila and Kevin Dick on the front row, Will Worsler, Tyler Seville on row number 2. And Green Flag goes back in the air at lap number 70 underway. Once again, Avila gets a great jump. Kevin Dick going to hold on to second, but here comes Will Worsler looking down to the inside of Tyler Seville.
I think another scheme to eliminate would be Johnny Avila's, since you can't throw back to last season's championship winning scheme.
That is correct. Johnny Avila is, I will say, not in contention. One of my favorites, thus far anyway, I do have to give to the 89 of Jeff Yenish, just back behind Tyler Seville and Colton Harvey going to work on each other here. Harvey clears easily, but got to think Tyler Seville is going to manage tires in a big way here. Because at this point, these guys don't have anything left in the pit box. You've got to make these tires last another 57, 58 laps.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of these drivers who are pushing a little bit harder end up with a blown right front at the end.
Great paint scheme here on the 89 of Jeff Yenish. This one, the Bullseye barbecue sauce. The paint scheme, anyway, is the Bullseye barbecue sauce throwback. Kenny Schrader ran that car. It was either Kenny Schrader or Buddy Baker ran that paint scheme. May even be a Buddy Baker paint scheme, which would be even cooler. But Kenny Schrader, if you're not a longtime NASCAR fan, you don't necessarily know who Kenny Schrader is. One of the most colorful characters in the history of the sport. Still an absolute legend on the dirt. Still runs 100-some races a year at whatever age Kenny Schrader is.
I believe he ran, when I was at the Little 500, I believe he ran the Little 500 as well.
Yes, he did.
I believe that was 2021.
Yep. Yeah, he runs that almost every year. My favorite Kenny Schrader story is one that he and Dale Jr. told on the Dale Jr. download. I would strongly encourage a listen. The clip is up on YouTube as well. But a 15 or 16-year-old Dale Earnhardt Jr. getting drunk in the parking lot of a gentleman's club in Kansas with Carl Edwards' dad. All happened because of Kenny Schrader. There are so many dots to connect on that story. We can't do it justice here.
This is before Carl Edwards even had a thought of going into racing. I mean,
That
Carl
is
Edwards,
correct.
He didn't really become a racing driver till what, his 30s? He was a substitute teacher. I guess one day decided, I'm going to go start driving trucks.
Yeah, well, he had a very good career of local and regional racing. But Cousin Carl really didn't take off until he ended up on Jack Roush's Gong Show. And that's where Roush kind of discovered him. Carl Edwards carried business cards that had his name and race car driver underneath his name with a phone number and stuff on it. And he said he would go up to anybody that would listen and say, if you need a race car driver, I'm your guy. And that's what caught the attention of Jack Roush, was he was telling this to everybody.
And he almost won 2 championships. What? Damn near tied in one of them when Tony Stewart won. He did tie in one of them.
Did tie with Tony Stewart.
And then what? He was eliminated in the Final Four his final year in NASCAR?
Yeah, he basically got hosed by a late race caution. That championship probably should have been his. The Tony Stewart deal, one of the most epic interviews or media sessions you will ever see, was Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards in Homestead. Tony wouldn't look at him, wouldn't talk to him. He spoke about Carl in the third person. Tony made that entire weekend so uncomfortable for Carl Edwards because he knew Carl was just a nice guy, and the Roush team shot themselves in the foot that weekend. It was more one of those that Stewart won it than Roush lost it. But yeah, absolutely epic media performance from Tony Stewart. See, Brad,
I believe.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I believe Carl Edwards nowadays, he has a farm now.
Yes, he does.
As we have an absolute fantastic move between the Dale Sr. and Jr. schemes.
Yeah, the 31 of Scott Wise. I would say, if we're going to go back and kind of start through this process of elimination, am I going to get blown up in the comments if we say eliminate the Dale Jr. scheme for just being too generically throwback?
See, I was going to say we're going to get shot down for this. I was going to say eliminate the 03 because the color combo still just isn't sitting with me. It's a great idea on paper. I love it. It's just the color combo, it's just not sitting right.
Yeah, I can agree with that one. What are your thoughts on the 31? Is it just like everybody has run a Dale Jr. scheme at some point?
Yes, but we don't have a field full of Dale Jr. schemes.
That's true. I'm kind of surprised there's only one of them in the field.
So, on one hand, yeah, eliminate the Dale Jr. scheme because it's the go-to. On the other hand, obviously it hasn't been the go-to. And tell you what, I'll do a search on Trading Paints on how many people are running that scheme. If it's less than 100 people running that scheme, we'll keep it. If it's more than 100 people running the scheme, drop it.
Okay, I like that thought process. Take a look here. Hunter Waters coming around. We'll try to get around the 86 of Tony Patton. Oh, big old bobble there from Hunter Waters. Great save off of turn number 4. This one, I am thoroughly enjoying this number 7 of Hunter Waters. Not only is it a great throwback, a Daytona 500 winning paint scheme the whole bit, but it's customized with the sponsors for the series. Lost Chevrolet Buick on the hood and quarter panels, Hunter Fried Pickles back there behind the number. The number's in the right spot, all the contingencies are good. I'm going to put a little mark next to the 7. I enjoy that paint scheme here tonight. Oh, Tony Patton bounces it off the outside wall. Opens the door for Hunter Waters. Oh, there's contact! Caution is out. Big pile up. We've got a mess. Hunter Waters is going to be involved. The 31 of Scott Wise is involved. Tony Patton's in the middle of it as well. Oh, and now we've got more cars piling in. Thomas Wilhite going to be involved in that one late as well. Take a look, see what happened into the corner. Tony Patton bounces it off the wall. Hunter Waters slides up the racetrack. Tim Knott piles in. The 31 piles in. That was Scott Wise. Big hit for the 23. Oh, and then very late contact caught out the 19 of Thomas Wilhite. Take a look at this one from another angle. Big contact there for the 23. Oh, man, Daniel Pinkston barely escaping. Big contact there. Andrew Moore Jr. barely getting through. Not a whole lot of holding the brakes down here and waiting for the field to clear.
Okay, I have an update on that number 31 Dale Jr. scheme. That is his rookie scheme with the black roof.
Okay.
There are 6 drivers currently racing it, therefore the scheme stays in contention.
I can agree with that. Like I said, I like the connection of the number, too. Kind of puts like there was some thought process put into this one that I like it. Would have been better if you ran the Mom and Pop's Neil Bonnet throwback, but... I also think we are colossally overthinking this.
I'm disappointed we don't have any Jeff Gordon throwbacks.
Well, you see, we did discuss the fact that you're kind of a 90s guy for the throwbacks.
Yeah, that is true.
I am more of an even earlier. I like the oddballs. So there was the Jeff Gordon paint schemes. The Rainbow Warrior scheme is an iconic scheme in the sport, but maybe too generic to pick. Outside of like the T-Rex or some of the schemes that ran at Winston. Yeah, like to me, that's just all branding exercise. There really wasn't a Jeff Gordon scheme that I go, oh, that's fantastic, except for that Rainbow Warrior scheme.
Or better yet, I'm surprised, like, if I was in this race, my default scheme on my next-gen Mustang is Mark Martin's little blue helper paint scheme.
I like that one. You know what? I would have even said, for creativity purposes, if somebody ran like the old Mark Martin Winn-Dixie Xfinity Series scheme, what was then the Busch scheme, the Tim Richmond schemes. Okay, if you're going to run a Tim Richmond scheme, you can't run the Folgers car. That one's too obvious. You have to go back to like a J.D. Stacy paint scheme from the way early 1980s. Would have been, I guess, 81 and 82, something like that. I do have to say, the Larry Pearson scheme on the 83, big time bonus points for John Moeller, because a David Pearson scheme like we have out here on Thomas Wilhite's car, that's cool. Like, I like the 60s throwbacks. I love that era of racing. But it takes somebody with a brain to go, man, I'm going to run a Larry Pearson paint scheme. Larry Pearson? Oh, you mean David? No, Larry Pearson. I like that one. I like the thought process that went into that one. Let's see who else we still have out on the racetrack here to discuss, by the way. The 89 of Jeff Yanish, we talked a little bit about this one as the Bullseye paint scheme. However, it's the Rouse homemade sauce paint scheme tonight. I like what you did there. That's
he's even got process. A modern sauce company, like, on the throwback. That is
his regular sponsor on a throwback that would fit like it's a couple of sauce companies. I like that.
Bonus points for that.
Field is distinctly smaller right now. Off at turn 4, green flags in the air. Oh, not a good start for the 22. Daniel Pinkston going to slide back here through the field. He did not get a good jump whatsoever. One who did is Johnny Avila. He's off like a rocket, but how about Steve Yanish? Up 16 to be the hard charger of the race.
I'm disappointed in myself that it took me 92 laps to realize there were 2 Yanishes in this race. I thought you just kept screwing up Jeff Yanish's name with someone else. Steve, I am so sorry.
We set the bar high here on NRN, that's for sure.
I don't think Steve has run with us before, so...
Before we forget, by the way, get all the sponsor plugs and thank yous in here. Got to say a huge thank you to simspeedshop.com for providing overall championship as well as season, spring and fall season championship prizes plus button boxes for the safe driver draw. Overall champion picking up a NASCAR style wheel for their sim rig, which is pretty darn cool. Spring and fall champions picking up a button box, as are 3 drivers in the safe driver draw. I know Andrew Moore has one of them. Also, Johnny Avila picking one up for his championship. Seeing pictures of their rigs, they look fantastic. Check them out, simspeedshop.com. Also, a thank you to Northland Leisure putting up the cash for the stage winner bonuses every week. Realty Executives Saskatoon picking up the cash for the fastest lap of the race award. That currently belongs to Alex Link. Alex Link. 29.376 seconds. He's going to finish 22nd, but he's got the fast lap of the race. Also, Custom Paints and Diecast putting up awards for the biggest loser and the hard charger of the race. Oh, contact with the outside wall for Steve Yanish. That's going to let Jeff Yanish come through. Yanish in the Rouse homemade sauce entry, making his way towards the front of the field. Now he wants a piece of Johnny Avila. And I'll tell you what, Patrick, Tires are coming into play. Johnny Avila with 28 laps on his set of Goodyears. 7 for the car of Jeff Yanish.
Yeah, I mean, he was sitting at the back, saving his stuff, got to take tires late, and it's going to pay off.
Trouble for Colton Harvey, trying to take a look, see what happened here. I don't see anything since the green flag, but Colton Harvey now being scored out of the race. Trouble as well for John Moeller as the battle for the lead heats up in a very big way. Avila, Yenish, Seville, and Haight, your top 5. That's not a sleazy law firm out of Center City, Philadelphia. That's the top 5 in this race. I look at the leaderboard, I see Jeff and Steve, and all I can think is the Hanson brothers from Slapshot.
As Tyler Seville is going to push Jeff Yanish all the way out to the lead, and he's going to get the underside of Johnny Avila. I don't know if that's going to help, but it will. And he puts that cocktail car up in the lead. Or, I guess, in second place.
Yes, let's see here. Steve Yanish continuing to fall back here. Troy Haight now coming past. Wow, how about Troy Haight going 2 for 1? Thank you, sir. May I have another? That car flying right now, but we saw it with the last set of tires. Troy Haight not able to make those Goodyears last. Scott Wise is checking in the comments, by the way, saying, when you do your trading paints hunt, make sure you're checking for the 99 2000 version of the Bud car. Most I see are the post car with the big E on.
Yep, Scott, that is exactly what I looked for. I looked for the black top with the, I believe, it's the little outlaw horse on the rear quarter panel.
Yep, there you go. Trouble for Colton Harvey. He's checking in saying, I don't know what happened. My sim just crashed in the comments.
Well, we thought it wasn't possible here in the sim world, but we're having mechanical difficulties. We'll attribute that one to a power steering pump. Maybe it was the water cooler on your PC. Maybe it was software related. But for the sake of realism, it's the power steering pump.
Yes. That's at least what's failing currently on the next-gen cars. Tell you what, Jeff Yanish is opening up on Tyler Seville. Right now, the gap's sitting at about 0.6 of a second. Top 3, Jeff Yanish, Tyler Seville, Troy Haight, all on 13-lap-old tires. Johnny Avila, the first of the cars that stopped earlier in the race. Avila stopping at lap number 67. He now runs in the 4th position. As does Steve Yanish, but Brad Allison coming past Yanish. That is going to be an absolute key to not have taken tires. Now, I think the guys like Johnny Avila have taken all of their sets of tires that were available to them. I believe, if I remember correctly, they took tires under that second caution. Attrition really starting to play a role here at Darlington now. Down to just 9 cars remaining on the lead lap. 13 cars remaining on the racetrack out of our starting field of 22.
I believe the ratios for cars to start and finish in this race is lower than in that initial 1950 race.
It could be. We would have to do some number crunching on that to find out how many of those cars were actually running at the finish. 367 laps.
That was actually a 400-lap race. I believe up until the mid-50s, or maybe early 60s, they measured the track from the lower part of the banking. Then when they added more banking to turns 3 and 4, what is now 1 and 2, they measured it from the outer part of the banking, which is where we get the 1.3 miles today. It used to be a 1 1/4 mile track. Same track, just different ways of measuring it.
"29 cars were running at the finish of that first Southern 500.
Oh, then never mind. We're definitely beating them. I believe 3 cars could finish this race, and we still beat that.
No, that would be... They started 75, which means they actually had a 40% finish rate.
Which I bet less than 40% of the spectators' cars made it home without a breakdown. Doesn't help that their good tires were replaced with corded garbage tires from the race cars halfway through the race.
This, by the way, is the best battle on the racetrack right now between Will Worsler just ahead of Steve Yenish. Kevin Dick going to be right there as well. 77 of Andrew Moore Jr. being scored in the 13th position. Looks like Scott Wise is making his way back out onto the racetrack. Kevin Dick having to look inside of Steve Yenish. Follow that battle along as Andrew Moore Jr. tries to sneak his way through.
Steve Yenish now absolutely trying to make up every bit of ground he can on these cars that have pitted on lap number 67. Johnny Vila leads the second pack. You can see Kevin Dick and Andrew Moore battling, but that is not for position. Andrew Moore actually a lap down from the rest of those guys, trying to get himself back up into that lucky dog spot. But now that I'm taking a closer look at the telemetry, he has 13 laps down, so that's not going to happen. The first car 1 lap down is Colton J. Harvey, and he is actually 6 laps down. So it's going to be tough for him to get back to the lead lap with 18 laps to go. I don't think it's going to happen for him.
Yeah, this race ticking by very, very quickly here, and the battle for the race lead is heating up here, Bizzle. Jeff Yenish, Tyler Seville running, we'll say, call it a car length and a half, maybe 2 car lengths as they get towards turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, Tyler Seville looking a little cocky back there, just trying to put the pressure on Jeff Yenish.
Yeah, these guys are running on the same age of tires as our 3rd place Troy Haight, 4th place Brad Allison. Johnny Avila, Will Worsler, Kevin Dick, Steve Yenish, they're all running fairly close together here as well. Not nearly as close as this battle is at the front. Those drivers all with 46 laps on their set of tires.
Which you can just see the difference between newer tires and older tires, even with how worn they are at this point. Johnny Avila is 2.5 seconds back from Brad Allison, who pitted on lap 88. Which is very uncharacteristic for Johnny Avila, as Tyler Seville goes to move around the high side. Is he going to make it happen here?
I'll tell you what, I think Yenish may have clipped the safer barrier exiting turn number 4 because Seville had to take all sorts of evasive action. Excuse me, that was turn 2 they were exiting.
It used to be turn 4.
Yeah, correct. Used to be the treacherous turn 4. Now it's the treacherous turn 2.
as they come through said turn 2, nice and clean. No Darlington stripes this time.
Not this time, but I'll tell you what, Yenish was way out of shape there.
Yenish going to have to do some catching up to do if he wants to catch up to the cocky guy up there in first place.
Well, and I'll tell you what, you got to be wondering, are any of these drivers going to encounter issues of not being able to make the length on their right front tire? Some of these cars, Johnny Avila, Will Wursler, you're asking for a 60-lap stint on a set of tires here. How does that work in iRacing? If you get a meatball for a right front tire and you have no tires to change, you're done, right?
You are pretty much screwed. And even if you ignore that meatball and keep going, you're still screwed because while it doesn't visually show that the tire is blown, you definitely feel it.
And you'll get the penalty for ignoring the meatball.
Yeah, which if there's a lap or two to go, it's the white flag, I'm sure the drivers could call out to the admins, hey, clear my black, I got a meatball for a tire. But even still, you're not going to make up any ground doing that. It's kind of just damage control at that point.
And I'll tell you what, the closest fight on the racetrack right now is this one. Will Wursler, Kevin Dick, Steve Yenish, Johnny Avila just ahead of them. But they're all separated by almost a second here. Really isn't much of a battle going on as we're down to 12 laps to go. Scott Wise in the 31 on fresh tires, absolutely ripping laps off. He'll come around to get one of his 14 laps back. So, Patrick, I think it's time for us to settle this. Man, this is hard.
All right. I'll say third place, we'll put Scott Wise in third. I'll give you my reasoning. It is a Dale Jr. scheme, so it's a common scheme, yet not terribly common. Especially in this race. But it's a nice-looking scheme. He's even got the wheels color matched to the red. And it's the Dale Jr. rookie scheme, the scheme he ran in 99 and 2000, not the one he ran through the rest of the 2000s. So it is kind of an oddball of the Dale Jr. schemes. So I'll give that one third.
Okay.
Especially since he was the only one brave enough to go for the risk of taking a Redneck Jesus scheme, because chances were a lot of other people would, and he was the only one that took that risk. So I'll give it to him for third.
All right, who do you have for second?
Will Wursler's scheme, that Jeff Burton scheme, that one's definitely caught my eye. That is a scheme I didn't grow up with. However, when I watch races from the 90s and look back, that's always one scheme that sticks out to me. And Jeff Burton, even though he was a talented driver, and he still is, I believe he's on NBC now doing the commentary, not a driver you think of when you go back and think of, you know, greatest NASCAR drivers of all time. He was always up there, but it's not a scheme you would go, hey, that's Jeff Burton, he was the best. Not that I want to give any discredit to Jeff Burton, but it's an oddball scheme for that regard, but it's one of the best-looking schemes that was on the grid at the time period.
Okay. You definitely are having your 90s flair to this one. Which do you think is the best overall of the paint schemes?
I'm going to let you pick the winner.
No. I'm just getting your picks here. I've got mine.
Oh, okay. Man. I'll give the winner to Mike McConville's scheme. I've always loved the Smokey Unic stuff, and that one kind of took me back. Even though he didn't do so well in the race. All the stories of Smokey Unic, I love cheating in motorsports. Not so much like running nitromethane in your fuel or crazy stuff like that, but ingenious cheats. And Smokey Unic was the king of that. The rule states I can only run a 15-gallon fuel tank. They don't say how much fuel line I can run, so I'm going to run 22 miles of fuel line in the trunk.
That's right.
It'll hold another 15 gallons. Stuff like that. Playing in that gray area of the rules, Smokey Unic was the best at that. And even though the schemes they ran weren't super bright or crazy or memorable, it's just the story behind them. And that's what Darlington, and that's what these throwback nights are all about, is the story behind the schemes.
Yep.
So,
I'll tell you what, I really like the Smokey Unic scheme. That was the scheme that ran on Smokey's cars. I really like them. I have a completely different 1, 2, and 3, by the way.
Oh, man.
We did not match on any of them. My third place car, I have the Larry Pearson entry, driven tonight by John Moeller. I like the oddballs like that. Second, I have the 89, which belongs to second place running Jeff Yanish. I like the touches that went into this one. The only thing that keeps it out of being first is I don't think the original car was ever metallic. But and my first place car, I have the 7 of Hunter Waters. Both of these I picked as 1 and 2 for executing their sim sponsors into a real-world throwback. I like the touch of doing that one. So I'll coin flip all 3 of them, our first, seconds, and thirds, and we'll see which is going to be which here. But down to 3 laps to go. This one is all Tyler Seville by 2.5 seconds over Jeff Yanish.
I can't believe he gets away with a paint scheme with cock written in ginormous font on the side of that thing. It does say cocktail. Tail is in really tiny letters in a darker color so it blends in more with the blue behind it. But it's definitely fantastically perfect advertisement. It gets me talking about it every time it's on screen because it's so ridiculous. I can't believe they allow that on there, and at the same time, it's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
As we have the final lap, and it's the last time I'll make this joke, he is definitely getting cocky up there in first place, almost 3 seconds ahead of Jeff Yanish.
I see what you did there. Entering turns 3 and 4 for the final time. This one is absolutely Tyler Seville's race to lose. He has done everything he needed to do in the way of tire management and strategy. Checkered flag goes in the air, and Tyler Seville wins at Darlington. Great win tonight for Tyler Seville, going to open up the points lead even further. He entered as a 20-point leader over Kevin Dick. That is going to expand to a pretty wide margin. And we have the results of our coin flips here, Patrick.
Oh, I'm excited.
Third place in the paint scheme contest tonight is going to go to the 83 of John Moeller. Congratulations, John. Runner-up paint scheme tonight, the number 29 of Will Worsler. And your paint scheme winner of the night, I can't even show the car because the dude is long gone, Mike McConville, winning paint scheme of the night in the 57, as the shenanigans of Will Worsler Racing taking over here at the start-finish line. This looks like Bowman Gray.
Except these guys are all happy doing this. At Bowman Gray, they're legitimately trying to kill each other. There's 8 state troopers running into the high school football field at the infield that is now turned into a demolition derby. NASCAR officials are getting run over. College football field. My apologies. It's a damn football field, and they use the running track around it as a racetrack.
Yep. It is Winston-Salem State University's home stadium, one of the great historically black colleges and universities in this country. It's epic. Actually, I may have to wear my Bowman Gray t-shirt tomorrow, but man, fantastic night of racing. I'll tell you what, Patrick, we actually got a heck of a show here. Not surprised at all that the tire strategy game is what won it. I think it's how it was won that was perhaps most impressive, because looking at the end of the race, the top three all stopped at lap number, or had 42 laps on their sets of tires, stopping at lap 88. That really is pretty impressive when you think about it. Tyler Seville not only stopped at the same time as everybody, but was able to gap the field by 3 seconds at the conclusion.
The overcut is always a super risky strategy, but sometimes it just works. And here tonight was a perfect example of that, because if everyone else takes the undercut, but you undercut too early, this is what you get. And unfortunately, that caution came out. Bunch of guys thought they could capitalize on it, take that set of tires at lap 67, and just didn't work out for them.
Let's take a look at your race results here as we get ready for our victory lane interviews. Tyler Seville getting the win over Jeff Yenish and Troy Haight. Johnny Avila, Will Worsler rounding out your top 5. Brad Allison, Kevin Dick, Daniel Pinkston, Colton Harvey, and Steve Yenish, the top 10. Only up to 7th place, Kevin Dick finishing on the lead lap. 11 to 15, Scott Wise, Andrew Moore Jr., Thomas Wilhite, John Moeller, and Hunter Waters. 16 through 20 tonight will be Richard Fletcher, Tim Knott, Tony Patton, Richard Smith, and Max Williams. Mike McConville and Alex Link both going out of the race very early in this one. With that, it is time for us to kick off our victory lane interviews here. And first, let's get everybody up here in the room. But start things off with our race winner, Mr. Tyler Seville. I'll tell you what, man, this race looked difficult to say the least. But congratulations, you picked up a heck of a win here tonight.
Yeah, the tire strategy worked out, and thankfully it stayed green after that last caution there, and I was able to pull this one out without a scratch on the car.
How do you do that at Darlington, especially when you're talking about running a couple of 40-lap stints on a set of tires?
It's just setting up marks for yourself and making sure that you hit those marks. I try to do my braking and gas points the same as if they were on like 60-lap tires, which is I think why I dropped back there some on the fresh tires, but then I'm able to make it up on the longer we go.
Well, now looking ahead to things just a little bit here, the point standings are really opening up. You entered the night with a 20-point gap over Kevin Dick. Kevin finishing in the 7th position. Will was 3rd, 22 points back. He finishes in 5th. You're really starting to open up a gap where maybe you can chase wins a little bit harder, knowing that you kind of don't have as many points to worry about.
Yeah, I think my plan has just been to try to top 5 them to death, but certainly being able to take advantage of situations that opened up today with the cautions the way they did. This is kind of Johnny's playground, this track, so anytime you can beat him here is an accomplishment. So yeah, the plan's just going to be to hopefully top 5 them to death and hold on to this title.
All right, bud. Well, congratulations on picking up a big win here tonight. And before we let you go here, make sure you get all those big sponsor plugs and thank yous in.
Yeah, shout out to my teammates, Cocktail Bar. Also, shout out to Jeff and Steve Yenish. They joined us tonight. Yeah, shout out to my teammates.
All right, bud. Well, thank you much. We appreciate you checking in here with us. And let's bring Jeff Yenish into the booth, our runner-up finisher here this evening. And I'll tell you what, man, you had a heck of a battle going on with Tyler there over the course of the late part of the race, and ultimately just a little bit too much tire wear, I guess.
Yeah, I used a lot of my tires trying to get around Johnny there early in the run, and I think that was probably the difference. And just underestimated how much Tyler would charge there at the end. Wish I had a few things back, but congrats to him for pulling that off.
You're running a paint scheme. I think that's what is this a Benny Parsons / Kenny Schrader like bullseye sauce throwback here, or am I completely off the mark on that?
You're off the mark. That's a normal one I run, although it kind of has a little bit of retro look to it. But Yeah, I didn't have time to throw one together because I didn't know it was racing until about 15 minutes beforehand.
Well, it's a good thing he didn't win the coin flip then.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, we may have to change up our honorable mentions and stuff. But yeah, I'll tell you what, you guys put on a heck of a run late in this race. How do you make an almost 50-lap stint happen here on a set of tires?
Just backing up the corner and making sure you don't go full throttle until you're basically going straight. It's easy to get loose and spin out off the corner, so you got to really preserve your tires, that's for sure.
All right, bud. Well, congratulations on a good win here, or a good runner-up finish here tonight, I should say. And before we let you go, make sure you get all the sponsor plugs and thank yous in.
Yeah, Rayo's Pasta Sauce, thanks for their support. And also thanks to all league sponsors. We got Realty Executives, Custom Paints and Diecast, North Lane Leisure. All those guys appreciate their support in the league. And it's good to run with everybody.
All right, bud. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you checking in with us here. And time to bring in our third-place finisher here tonight, a guy who absolutely put on a monster show over the course of the night here. Troy Haight, you would be middle of the pack to first, to fifth, to mid-pack to first. You were kind of all over the place tonight.
Yeah, the 28 Woodfather Chevy was pretty strong tonight. Kind of used the tires up that one run, but was trying to learn from that.
Is that something that you can do over the course of a run? Does it concern you at all when you kind of go, I really got to see how far I can push these? Or is that something that you kind of just have to do over the course of the run?
Well, I was trying not to run too hard, but just end up passing, and I got a little bit of lead, and then it just kind of went away. But you just kind of got to learn from mistakes there.
Well, you certainly did that, bringing home a third-place finish here tonight, because that was the strategy call was absolutely exceptional to put yourself in the pits at the same time as Tyler, Jeff, and a couple others. So congratulations on the third-place finish here tonight. And before we let you go, get all those sponsor plugs and thank yous in.
Yeah, I want to thank Woodfather, my dad, friends watching, you guys in the broadcast booth, Sam and the two Jordans for the league. That's about it. You guys in the booth.
All right, bud. Well, go ahead.
No, just look forward to next week then.
Yeah, we certainly are as well. And thank you much for checking in with us here, Troy. And man, I'll tell you what. One, I can't believe that I got snookered on thinking that was a Kenny Schrader, Benny Parsons throwback. That's disappointing. I'm going to find a picture and post that on our social media channels and say, see, I'm not an idiot. It sort of ish looked the part. But anyway.
I was going to say, I believed you.
You know what? It's close. It really is close to one of the old, gosh, I want to say either Red Baron Pizza or Bullseye Barbecue sauce schemes that they ran in the very early 90s. But one way or the other, we had a fun night here. I'm getting called out in the direct messages here. No love for the Pearson scheme. I love the David Pearson scheme. Yeah, honorable mentions, Scott Wise for the Dale Jr. car, Hunter Waters for the Derek Cope machine, and I will give out one more here real quick. Actually, my other honorable mention would go to the 19. I love the David Pearson throwback look that Thomas Wilhite had on the car tonight. That was an absolutely fun night of racing here at Darlington. Gave us a lot to talk about. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show. We have got a ton coming up here on the National Racing Network the rest of this week. Tomorrow night, it will be the Ezra IndyCar Series taking on the Tricky Triangle at Pocono. The drivers are absolutely enamored with our broadcaster's pick of racetrack. Those guys absolutely hate that place, which is part of the reason that we picked it, quite frankly. Going to follow it up.
I love Pocono.
Pocono in an IndyCar just feels right. But also, coming up tomorrow night, 10:15 in the East. That Ezra race, by the way, will be at 8:30 p.m. in the East. Tomorrow night, 10:15 in the East, it will be the Indy Pro 2000 Championship, running Das Boot up at Watkins Glen International. Looking forward to that race as well. Love the races the PM18s at the Glen, especially when they run the boot layout. Big old chef's kiss on that one. But with that, it is time for us to get the heck on out of here. It's been a fun night, and we're looking forward to doing a whole lot more of it with you tomorrow night. For Patrick Byrne and everybody here at the National Racing Network that makes these broadcasts happen, my name is Chris Graham. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will talk to you all soon. Have a good night, everybody.